So my spoiler warning for this video goes a little something like this. If you have seen the film Annihilation, but you haven't read the book Annihilation, I think you're safe. More happens in the film than it does the book, so you can carry on watching this video, in my opinion. If you haven't seen the movie or read the book, then spoilers ahoy! Spoilers ahoy! Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, 2014, book 1 of the Southern Reach trilogy. This has been on my radar since before the film came out in 2018. I've known about this book for a long time. I've been wanting to read it. Now a Netflix original film. I know I own the crappy paperback with the film art on the front. I know a lot of people hate that, but it was 50p in a charity shop, and when I see a nice hardback out in the wild of this book, I will replace it, okay? Calm down. We do need to quickly talk about the film before we talk about the book, because the two have become intertwined in my mind, a bit like the biodiversity in the book and the film. Come on, that was good. I must have said this about 100 times on the channel before. I don't judge adaptations by how loyal they are to the source material at all. I just don't give a shit. To me, they are two entirely separate pieces of art. However, that doesn't mean that one can't influence the other. In fact, that's impossible to ignore sometimes, and quite often it enhances the experience. I watched and thoroughly enjoyed the movie when it came out a couple of years ago, so now when I read this, I can see Natalie Portman, Oscar Isaac. The world building has a head start on me. I can feel the shimmer and the wavy colours and the actual look of the film, and even the vibe and the pacing has a certain expectation. And I think that's great in this particular case, because the book and the film have a very similar vibe. Alex Garland didn't just borrow the main thrust of the book, he nurtured it and made a cinematic version. The plot. I promise I will do my best to avoid talking about the film too much. This is a book review, okay? But I think the main difference, a key difference, is at the beginning of the film, we see something fall from space. The audience is shown something crash landing on Earth, or seeding itself on Earth, starting some sort of process. But in the book, we just don't get that, because the perspective is from one person's point of view, or it's extracted from her journal entries, which were written after most of the action in the book has already taken place. There's a weird quarantine zone called Area X in some coastal region of the United States. It has a wobbly, diffused light perimeter that no sensors can penetrate. No one can go in and kind of record stuff and report back to the outside world. And it's been slowly expanding over the past 30 years. Every now and again, the company that controls this quarantine zone, called the Southern Reach Corporation, I think it's the Southern Reach Corporation. They feel like an arm of the government, of the American military. I'm not quite sure if they're official or not. They must be. And I don't think it's fully explained in the book. It doesn't really matter. Every now and again, they send in a squad to investigate. And inside Area X, somehow the laws of physics, time, the fundamental forces and biology is somehow warped and a little bit different and strange, and either the squad dies inside, or they just disappear, never come out again, or maybe something stranger happens to them. So we pick up the story when a new squad of women enter Area X. We never know their names, we just know their titles, their speciality. There's the biologist, the psychologist, the anthropologist, and what was the last one? The The contortionist? No. The alchemist? No. The splanchnophile? The what?
The surveyor.
The surveyor. The surveyor. But it's not that simple, is it? Is it ever? Natalie Portman, the biologist, her husband was a Marine or something, and he's already gone inside Area X, and he disappeared for a while, and then one day he just showed up at their house, clearly not feeling himself, and then died of cancer. And now this shady Southern Reach organisation won't give her any answers. Clearly something wasn't right. Was that her husband? What's gone wrong in Area X? How did he just turn up again? She wants to know what happened. She also has a military background, so somehow she got the job to go in Area X because I don't know what she expects to find there. I guess that's what the book is kind of about. That personal element gives the book a hell of a lot of emotion and focus, and I think without it, it would be a story about a squad on a mission. It would still be a weird book, but that connection to the outside world, her personal involvement, elevates Annihilation above its science fiction core. It's really her internal story.
Hello, Moid of the Future here. Thank you for tuning into one of our archive videos, which was recorded many moons ago. Media Death Cult has evolved a lot over the years, so be sure to check out the more recent projects on the channel. You can support what we do here by grabbing yourself a t-shirt or a mug at the merch store, using Buy Me a Coffee, which is an online tipping service, or you can actually join the cult on Patreon and gain access to our exclusive Discord server, the best read-alongs in the galaxy, and the podcast, Radio Death Cult. Links to all that good stuff in the description of this video. Thank you so much. Peace!
Once we actually enter the zone, Jeff Vandermeer does a brilliant job of continuing the story. There is still a plot to follow, but he creates this really dreamy atmosphere. Everything is a little bit uncertain and cloudy. The mission, and therefore the plot, kind of starts to evaporate and starts to feel really loose. The squad are still practical, they know what they're doing, but they can't quite comprehend what they're finding inside Area X, and that eerie feeling of uncertainty starts to creep up on you. The botanist's inner monologue is full of doubt and distrust. It's very unsettling because of that blind spot, and of course they're completely cut off from the outside world. I can't remember reading anything that gets that balance quite so right. I think it's the combination of that removed perspective and the situation that they're in. Both are quite alien, and for most of the book it feels oddly relaxed and pedestrian. But about halfway through the novel is where the shadow of the film is cast onto the book. This is relevant, I promise. I remembered the film very well, mainly because of its very simple structure. It has a definite destination, which is the lighthouse, and on the way to that destination there are 4 or 5 action sequences. I totally expected it to, but the book just doesn't follow that path. We hang out in a different location for most of the story, and that caught me off guard a little bit, in a totally positive way, because now I'm reading something that isn't just the film in book form. There were other things at play. So this fascinating journey into the unknown that these 4 women are taking, that I didn't think I could be a part of because it had been spoiled for me with my knowledge of the film, is now restored. I can now join them into the heart of darkness. I should have said heart of darkness. Let's do that again. We'll do it again. I could now join them into that heart of darkness. I could now join them into that heart of darkness. I could now join them into that heart of darkness. I could now join them into that heart of darkness. Right, how to quantify the themes of Annihilation. On a surface level, it's simply a passive alien invasion, a non-hostile takeover in slow motion. That's an incredibly interesting but also terrifying prospect. It's an enemy, I suppose, that you can never negotiate with or even study properly, because when you enter its territory, you are changed. You're not who you once were. You are consumed by the alien. And it's very important for the vibe of the book that we get very little hard data from higher up the food chain, from the Southern Reach people themselves. We don't cut away, it's not a film, we don't cut away to a chapter of what's going on the outside. We find out more about Natalie Portman's background and why she possibly may be going there, or who she is, but never anyone else, and never really the bigger picture. Most other books that deal with this phenomenon talk about what weapons were used, what the media thinks, how this affects the rest of the world. But Annihilation is very comfortable staying inside the botanist's head. I don't know what the other books in the trilogy do with all of this. I don't think they can just repeat the same story over and over again and stay inside this zone. If there's a different perspective from outside of Area X, it will feel like we've been snapped out of a dream. I'm intrigued, to say the least. But we all know that this is about so much more than this weird genetic altering virus thing. We can put the practical science fiction over here for a second. At this point in the review, I've covered all the usual booktube bases. I've introduced the book, I've talked about some of the plot and the writing, and now I'm supposed to share with you what I thought Jeff Vandermeer was really writing about. I'll present a theory and try and look really smart and just a little bit smug. I'll be completely honest, I'm struggling a little bit with this one. I can talk about the practical science fiction all day long, the physical stuff that you can actually see in the book. Is it aliens? Probably. Is it a portal into another dimension? Probably not. Is it actually human created, experimental? The Southern Reach people have done some weird shit and they're not confessing to the right people and we're only seeing half of the story. Yes, that's a possibility. Is it a natural occurrence? Has evolution jumped a few stages, a little bit like X-Men? That's a possibility as well. But when we try and go a little bit deeper, when I try and think about what all this really means, is it about people? Is it about a mental state? I'm not quite sure what it all means. It's fascinating, but that's kind of the point in reading science fiction like this. We don't want all the answers. We want to kind of fill the gaps in ourselves. Right, I will scattergun some ideas out there, some theories. They're not really theories. Right, I think it's probably about the biologist, the Natalie Portman, the biologist character, because that's who we spend most of the time with. In flashbacks, things about her past and her childhood, we learn a lot about her, and I don't think she's mentally all there. I think she has some issues, but I'm not sure how it ties in with the location, with Area X. We hear her voice, but that's only because the story has been told through her journal, so I'm not sure. The entity is changing nature. It's not actually killing anything, it's just transforming it. And if you think about it, the world would be a more stable place, I think, once Area X covers the whole of the planet. Nature would benefit, and we are nature. We are part of all of that. We are biology, and the biologist accepts this and embraces it at the end of the book. The actual word, the title, Annihilation, is screamed by a practically possessed character in the book over and over again. It's supposed to induce suicide, and people, their minds, humanity is annihilated inside Area X. That's terrible. And the introduction of doppelgangers makes me think that there is some sort of intelligence at play. I don't think it's just a virus spreading around. I think there is a method to what it's doing. I don't know why I think that. I think the point is, with the combination of very little explanation and an unreliable narrator, there's always a danger of a novel like this being too ambiguous and floaty. And that's what all the negative reviews point to. A big shrug of the shoulders. But if you just let go and you don't need all the details to be definitive and absolute, it's quite a trip. Maybe have a couple of drinks while you're reading it. That would be drunk reading, wouldn't it? Is that illegal in certain parts of the world? I think it's successful. It's short, it's beautifully written, and there is plenty in there to keep you guessing, keep you interested, without utterly confusing you. Just about. And I just can't escape the influence that the film had on me. I really don't know what I would have thought of this if I would have read it as a complete standalone. If the film didn't exist or I hadn't watched the film. I really don't. It's so hard to call. But we don't have to pick between the two, do we? The day after I finished reading the book, I rewatched the film and they perfectly complement each other. This thing that is Annihilation is entirely entangled. To me, it's a book movie. A boovie. A score for Annihilation. I don't know. That's a tough one. It's on the good scale. It's up there. It's not perfect because I think if I read the whole trilogy and then reread this one day and then watch the movie again and get even more into it, I think this would be. And I think I want a little bit more, a little bit of an explanation, and surely I'll get that in book 2 and book 3. So, to cut a long story short, at the moment I'm feeling 4 stars, 80%. That's pretty damn good.
Hello, sorry to interrupt, it's Moid of the Future again. Right, since I've recorded this book review, which was a few years ago now, I have very recently, in fact I only finished it last week, I've read this book again because I'm reading all 4 of them. Because also, since I recorded this video, a 4th book in the trilogy, how does that work? I'm not sure if that's the last one, but a 4th book in this series has come out and we're doing a cult read along right now. So I'm reading the whole thing. I haven't read number 2 or 3 before, and now I'm going to read number 4, so I've just reread number 1. Now, in this video, I just said that it's not perfect. It's an 8 out of 10, even though I really loved it. I still wouldn't say it's absolutely perfect, because what the hell does that mean? But I enjoyed it even more. I enjoyed the writing and the whole thing a lot more, and I'm going to rewatch the film tonight. Not that that matters to this book review. Well, it kind of does. So I'm up in my score, if anybody cares, to at least a 9, maybe beyond that. I'm just loving Jeff Vandermeer more and more. The same thing happened with Bourne. I really enjoyed it the first time, and then I loved it even more the second time. So maybe the trick with Vandermeer is read everything at least twice, I think. Anyway, back to the video, although it's nearly finished now, back to me saying goodbye, or maybe I'll just cut to the bit at the end with a silly animal or something like that.
Stay away from that old Viper man. Don't you take that fruit he's holding in his hand. Just one bite and you'll be swinging with the band.